A warm summer afternoon, over 100 passengers board a sleek Italian train, laughing, chatting, completely unaware that they're about to vanish. Not in a crash, not in a fire, but in a way that defies everything we know about time, space, and reality itself. Witnesses say they saw the train enter a mountain tunnel in northern Italy. Minutes passed, then hours, and the train never came out. No wreckage, no smoke, no survivors, no trace, as if it had been swallowed whole by the earth. This is the chilling legend of the Zonati ghost train, a mystery that has haunted historians, conspiracy theorists, and paranormal researchers for more than a century. It was 1911, and the Zonati Company, a luxury rail line, was running a brand new, state-of-the-art passenger service from Rome to Milan. On that fateful day, 104 passengers boarded. The train gleamed with polished brass, velvet seats, and the kind of luxury that symbolized the golden age of rail travel. Everything seemed normal until the train reached the Lombard Tunnel, a long stone-lined passage cutting through the mountains. Witnesses at the entrance described something strange. A thick white fog began to gather around the tunnel mouth. The sound of the train's engine echoed inside, but never seemed to fade toward the far end. It entered. The fog thickened. And then, silence. Rail workers at the other side waited and waited, but the train never appeared. Emergency teams scored the tunnel. No twisted metal, no debris, not even disturbed tracks. It was as if the train had vanished mid-journey. Some claimed to hear distant sounds, like muffled voices or the faint rumble of wheels, but every search came up empty. The Italian rail authorities were baffled, and yet, the more they investigated, the stranger the story became. Within hours of the train's disappearance, Italian railway officials dispatched emergency crews to both ends of the Lombard Tunnel. Workers with lanterns and oil lamps stepped into the darkness, their voices echoing off the stone walls. They expected the worst: twisted carriages, mangled tracks, maybe the acrid smell of smoke from a boiler explosion. But what they found was nothing. The tracks were perfectly intact, the ballast undisturbed. Not a single bolt, scrap of metal, or splinter of wood lay on the ground. Even the dust along the rail bed seemed untouched, as though no train had passed at all. Search teams went over every meter of the tunnel, tapping the stonework, looking for signs of collapse or hidden chambers. There were none. Some workers swore they could still hear faint sounds deep in the tunnel, muffled voices, the soft rumble of wheels, and the hiss of escaping steam. But when they rushed toward the noise, it faded into silence. Confused, the crews began to suspect a navigational error. Perhaps the train had somehow switched to another line before entering the tunnel. But a check of the nearby junctions proved impossible. Every switch was locked in position, and no alternate tracks led away. For the railway authorities, this wasn't just a mystery, it was an embarrassment. A train full of paying passengers had simply ceased to exist. And the more they searched, the stranger the case became. The first theory? A cover-up. Maybe the train derailed somewhere else, and the company buried the truth to avoid scandal. But there were no missing bodies, no wrecks anywhere along the route. Then came a more outlandish claim, that the Zonati train had somehow slipped into another time. According to this legend, survivors, or their descendants, were allegedly spotted decades later in faraway places, claiming they remembered boarding a train in 1911 and waking up in a completely different era. Even stranger, there's a persistent rumor from Mexico. In the 1840s, decades before the incident, villagers allegedly described a strange metal carriage appearing in the countryside, filled with confused Italian-speaking passengers. If that's true, it means the train didn't just vanish, it traveled back in time. The Lombard Tunnel still stands, though it's long abandoned, and some say, on quiet nights, you can hear the faint echo of a train passing through. A train that never reaches the other side. Over 100 men, women, and children stepped onto that train in 1911. Not a single passenger was ever seen again. No bodies, no wreckage, no official record explaining where it went. More than a century later, the The Lombard Tunnel still cuts through the hillside, its stone walls weathered and its tracks long removed. Locals avoid it, calling it cursed. Some claim that on windless nights, a low rumble drifts from its depths, the rhythmic clatter of wheels, the distant hiss of steam, and a whistle that fades before it reaches the far end. A phantom journey, endlessly replaying, yet never arriving. So, was the Zanetti ghost train a real tragedy, a work of fiction, or a terrifying glimpse into the cracks of reality? And if a train can disappear into thin air, what else has been lost that we never knew existed? If you think the Zanetti train was swallowed by a time rift, hit the like button. If you believe it was just an elaborate hoax, tell us why in the comments. And if you love exploring history's most chilling unsolved mysteries, subscribe now, because the next story might change the way you see the world forever.